Welcome to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I am your host, Nicole Frolick, and I invite you to cozy up with me each week as I explore all aspects of the spiritual journey, spiritual biohacking, and expanding the mind beyond this reality. Remember that the collective awakening can start by planting one seed, so thanks for being such an amazing audience and sharing these shows with your family and friends. So without further ado, let's jump right into the episode and find out what we're discovering today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I hope you're all doing really well tonight. I hope you're in for a really fun show. Of course, we have a returning guest, Mason Feary, back to the show. I've had quite a few of you guys ask for me to bring him back because he seems to be a fan favorite, and I'm not surprised. Mason, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show because you're so grounded, you know, like you're very grounded and you've got a wealth of information to share, knowledge, experience, the whole kit. So, what's 2021 been like for you since we last saw you in February? I think it was February.
Yeah, it was February. Yeah, it's been a lot of resisting wearing masks. I'll tell you that. It's funny because we were at the forest preserve just a little bit ago here, taking a walk, and there was a dog on a leash, and I said, "Oh, it reminds me of my childhood." And then the lady goes, "Well, did you wear a muzzle as well?" And I said, "No, not till 2020." So that was pretty funny. But yeah, just going to different states, and not wearing that mask. I refuse to wear that mask.
Yeah, it's starting to ease up in different states across America, from what I hear, and there are some people here in Canada, in Ontario, that are doing some great work, forcing certain corporations to have to change their policy because it's not in accordance with the law. And so I applaud those people who are putting their necks on the line and going in and doing a lot of the grunt work, because that's what it takes.
Yeah, there's there's one guy that's pretty famous, I think. I forget his name, Chrissy something.
Oh, Chris Guy.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good information. He's kind of angry, but he's got a lot of good information.
Yeah. He's great. He's doing fantastic work. He's Canada's most wanted. So he's definitely causing some big waves. So we're going to get into some really fun topics tonight. Let's just jump into the timeline stuff. And,
sure.
It's just this concept that's kind of been percolating lately in the last little while for me, is this idea of building timelines in the astral plane, because, we talk about building timelines in this here and present moment through our conscious work, but also how to reprogram the subconscious so that you're building your timelines in the way that you want them to manifest. But we're also building timelines on the astral plane as well. What's your experience been on your side with building timelines on the astral plane?
So I would say before getting into this community and being a part of, talking about this type of stuff, the majority of my time was really kind of focusing on, okay, what do I have now? Because if you kind of look at what you have now, you can set your foundation. And that's very important when it comes to all this type of manifesting or dream work. And so when we start with the dream world, the best thing to do is to start a journal. And that's one thing that I struggle with, but journaling helps you remember and retain those messages coming from that world. Also in the dream world, I noticed that a lot of things that are coming to our subconscious daily, like the things that we're focusing on but not really aware of, will make themselves present in the dream world. And if we have too much chaos within our daily routine, you're not going to be able to tap into that timeline that you want to, because there's too many unresolved things surfacing. So the first thing is to really become present within the now moment, because when we're present here, then you can kind of focus more on where you want to put your energy and where. So that way, when the dream world does come up, you have an ability to kind of pick and choose where you want to put your energy versus where you scattered it throughout the day. And that does take some time, but you could start down by doing the journaling, really writing down your experiences, because after a while, the time where the messages come through is the time when you retell your story. So the more you kind of look into your dream world and go like, huh, that was kind of funny. Well, why was I missing teeth? Well, that can be a sign of like low confidence. So when you start dissecting these things and start trying to interpret, you got to remember that the dream world is not a literal, but it can be more of like a mirror or a metaphorical world. And a lot of the messages don't seem clear, but as you write them down, there's a couple of dreams that I've had that I came back months later and then got a different understanding. Go, now I see how I manifested that through these reoccurring dreams. And a lot of the work really has to do with mainly being awake, because what you're ingesting, if you're on social media or if you're constantly watching a TV show or maybe you're arguing, that's going to affect your manifestation in the dream world, because there's a lot of that attention going other places versus where we truly desire and where we want to be.
Yeah. And in fact, it's interesting you say that, because it's important to understand how much we're being manipulated, not just in our waking moments, but also in the astral through where we're putting our attention, like you just said, in this waking moment. And as of Friday last week, I decided I'm just not going to watch any TV programming. Like I go and I pick and choose certain YouTube things to watch. But as far as like movies or any kind of TV, I've completely stopped. And for a couple of reasons. One is just because I just don't want to distract myself, use it as a distraction when I could be doing more productive things. Mm-hmm. But also it's been interesting to observe like how much it is impacting the dream world. I had this really crazy dream last week. And I don't know if it was because of the eclipse, like the eclipse season brought in like the astral plane was just crazy for me, extremely vivid. And I had a dream that felt very much like I was at this house, and it was almost like there were a bunch of people meeting in this house in this big living room. All the furniture was pushed to the sides to fit all these people in, and I was standing there, and there were some people with cameras and like maybe some media, and I was standing there, and I was standing beside someone I knew very well, but I just couldn't remember their face or who they were. And the next thing I know is that I can smell fumes coming up from behind me and this person. And as soon as I realize there's fumes coming up behind me, there's this big camera flash across the way from like behind someone, and it hits both of us and it stuns us, and we instantly fall to the ground. Like the fumes catch us, it stuns us, and it's like this thing, and we get, and from my higher self, I'm watching in the dream how I'm being carried away somewhere to a facility, which looks like some kind of government facility. And when I'm in there, I'm reverted back to, like, I'm still my adult self, but I'm acting like a child. And I'm in this room, like, with my station, and it's got, like, building blocks and something else, like some other kind of toy. But then, like, I realize that I'm being watched, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? What do they want me to do? Like, I remember thinking, like, what do I do? And so then next thing I know, I see that there's these children's stickers, like cartoon kind of like child stickers on the actual concrete floor. And so I'm really out of it. I can barely have my wits about me, and I'm trying to peel the stickers off the ground, and I'm just so engrossed with these stickers, and I know they're watching me, but I'm like, these stickers, wow. And the next thing I know, I pull one sticker up and I see that there's another one underneath, and it's a superhero. And I take the superhero and I put it on my heart chakra, because I'm like, I want to be the superhero right now. And the next thing I know, I'm telepathically communicating with this bodyguard that was at that meeting, who's now watching over me. And he's telling me that he doesn't agree with what they're doing to me, but they can't know. And he's communicating to me that I'm going to be safe. And then somehow I get taken out of there, and I'm back at this house, but the house is empty. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, what is this all about? Like, and it's just, it makes me wonder, like, those kind of things, are they flashes into another parallel reality? Is it a flash into another timeline? Is it a flash into the future? Is it just manipulation of me on the astral plane to help create this current timeline? There's so many things that go through your head on it.
Well, I guess the first thing to kind of break it down would be if you were to journal it, you'd be able to look at it a different way. Now, was that flash like an older 1920s camera where it had that film and that smoke flash? Or was this more of like a poison gas? That would be my question if you could remember doing that.
So the camera looked like it was from the 50s.
Okay.
But the fumes were coming from behind me. The camera was across the room, but it
So
was
a distraction.
directed towards. I knew that it was directed specifically for me and this person. Like it was almost like it was a trigger.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you look at these abductee experiences, they're preceded by a large flash, a little bit of a disillusion, and then you're transported to a different place. A lot of times there is cases where I've heard where people can be abducted by these military experience. And the reason why they do want these children is because the children consciousness is a little bit different. If you get a child and you put objects, and you'll see this in a lot of movies, like Avatar is one, you'll get certain objects and you want to see which ones they go towards, because depending on which one they go towards, you can kind of identify where they come from. And by studying the habits of the child, you picked up a superhero, which means to me that you put it on your heart chakra. You're here to kind of show that power of that heart chakra, but the power comes from the inner child. If we go back into like Kabbalistic terms, you have the Kabbalistic tree, which is the masculine, the feminine, and the child, also known as God. Well, all of our healing and all of our power actually comes from our child, like ourself as a child. And so that could be quite a powerful reflection on your own experience, whether it be a past experience or not, or manipulation. But the focus should be as that perspective of the child, because the perspective of the child is going to be pure innocence. And that's one of the things that these social engineers want to take away. Innocence. And that literally gives us the connection to the divine, because the divine is just, you think of a baby, you think of a child, they're not only are they scientists, but they're purely innocent. You shouldn't really get mad at one for trying to understand this reality. But that's kind of an interesting experience, because I actually have a real experience when I was a child getting taken to a Navy facility with my sister's father, quite frequently actually, as a child, staying overnight playing with objects. But for some reason, I can't actually penetrate those memories too much. There's something blocking there that I'm trying to get access to. But our dreams are very interesting when it comes to metaphorical understanding, metaphorical information. We can always go back into a mode of meditation before we go to sleep and ask your guides like, hey, can we revisit this, but give me a different perspective. You can do all sorts of things in dreams. You could actually become the perspective of that security guard and try to gain an understanding of what he's viewing with the knowledge that he's tapped into. But you just have to go and ask and be in that receptive mode to try to do that. And that's kind of like a form of remote viewing before you go into sleep. But a lot of answers can come from revisiting these dreams or trying to meditate on these dreams to find true answers.
So, yeah, no, and I love that, because I think that that's definitely something that I don't consider as often as I think I should, is asking to go back into certain dreams or situations with a different perspective, not just the one that I viewed it from.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I got to try that.
Yeah. Well, so if we think about the fourth dimension, the fourth dimension is the first three, the first one being consciousness. Right. Consciousness also in Hermetic philosophy is known as the law of mentalism. The second law would be correspondence, as above, so below. And the second dimension would be polarity, masculine, feminine. So within the third and fourth dimension, we have physical space and time, but then also that fourth dimension, there really is no separation between our perspective and others. That's why we can have a friend in our dream, not know who they are, but actually that is a second version of us experiencing that moment. So when we're in the astral, you can become and play any character you want to. It's just becoming lucid during that dream, where you can take control of the actual script and become and embody that person. And you can not only view what this person's experiencing, but yourself, and gain even more deeper understanding. Back in Egyptians' times, they used to have the eye of Horus, left eye and right eye of Horus, and they would teach about the astral realm and actually how to navigate it. And a lot of times what we come to find out nowadays is the reasons why there's so many entities and all these kind of things in that fourth dimension is because that knowledge of how to navigate that plane is gone. So these entities are actually stuck here. So by practicing navigation within the astral realm, we can actually understand, well, the different levels, the higher, the middle, the lower. Most people, when they go in the dream space, they go into the middle, lower realm, but you can go to higher realms to gain that higher perspective and then even higher from there. But back in those days, they would teach at different levels of the astral realm, you'll get different impressions. And what I mean by that is in the lower realm, you can have your teeth falling out. Okay, that'll be a very vague description of, okay, I need to work on my own confidence. Or a room could flood. A lot of times when you're dreaming of water being in your room, that is about emotions that are coming out of everywhere that are unsettled, right? Movement of water. So when the higher up you go in these realms, the clearer these responses get to our own perception. But then when you go too high, they kind of look like geometries and more like how sounds shape through vibration and become things. So you want to stay in that middle area, in that higher astral realm in the fourth dimension. And by gaining all those different type of experiences, you can put them all together and then come back when you wake up to look at your journal and go, oh, well, obviously there's some emotions within me or some sort of skill set that I need to, look into or whatever it has to be with your situation. But you want to gain all those different perspectives because you literally have the ability to do that in that astral realm. You're not confined to who you are. When we go into the dream world and I'm Mason as a dream, I'm not in control of that dream. I am just subconsciously going into this area projected as myself when I can be whoever I want to be. Mm-hmm. I was telling my partner the other night, it's like, I think I'm going to be the Hulk and go to the moon. You can be whoever you want to be in the dream. But the point of the dream is to learn how to navigate, but then also to explore the subconscious. There's a reason why we sleep at nighttime, because the subconscious realm is amplified by the moon, but then also the subconscious realm is what's recording all day. And then it's time to unwind and then show us what it's received for that day. So there's a lot to this kind of stuff. And I myself, I'm very fascinated with the dream realm. There's a place in Virginia called the Monroe Institute that will teach people how to do outer body experiences. They'll teach these navigation tactics of the astral realm and how to retain the messages or impressions that you're getting from that world.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I think the more that you become aware and you're able to tune in to your dreams, because I know there are some people that just aren't able to access their dreams, which is a damn shame. Because not only is it extremely entertaining sometimes, but there, like you said, there's just so much. There's so much to take in there, like information, knowledge, guidance, insight that you wouldn't necessarily get in the waking moment. But, for instance, like you're talking about this idea of, being able to access the dream so that we can start to shift things that we're not conscious of in our waking time. Mm-hmm. I think that's important because we're bombarded with so much here. So it's like, again, that word distraction, it's easy for us to get distracted. And I've spent so much time thinking about consciously trying to build my timeline while I'm awake, whether it's in meditation or just being conscious of my thought patterns or what actions I'm taking, not taking, like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But then kind of realizing the depth of the astral realm, and you talking about this idea how there's like different layers, like there's the lower and then there's like the middle and then there's higher realms. It makes sense to me now because, you hear about how they're different, like there's the lower and the higher, but you kind of, there's just always someone who says it one way and it just finally hits for you. Like that's what you just did for me. Because now I understand why sometimes I know I'm in a dream with my higher self. And that's me, I guess, accessing the higher realms and I'm with someone else's higher self.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So when we separate the different layers, you can think of them like this too. The best way to prepare yourself, from my own experience, is we have to fast, not necessarily with food, but with what we absorb throughout the day. So technology is quite interesting. LED lights actually have the ability to charge the pineal gland, but with artificial light. Also, the subconscious runs off imagery. And so if we're constantly bombarded with, an algorithm that gives us all these random images, you're not building your attention span to kind of focus on where you want to go. You're always looking at the next image, or the next thing, or the next impression, or the next funny video. So when we want to kind of get into that thing, digital fasting, and then fasting in general helps as well, because it clears the body of things that are not necessarily needed for us. It's all external distractions. A lot of times when I am in that mode, and I've done, I had a very stress-free day, I can access that part of myself that feels like my higher self, but in my understanding, it's more like a father. But that father is also myself, but then I'm also the child. So you have the three different aspects that you can kind of navigate with in these different realms. And it's so fascinating when I speak to what I see as my father, which is a version of myself, but it's just a higher version. Everything's so clear. And a lot of times in the astral realm, you'll question, it looks like an X, is that really you? And then they turn and do whatever they're going to do. But this one, there's no disconnection. I know that is my higher aspect. I can feel it because he translates and communicates through my own experience. It's incredible. And the amount of information, usually when I wake up, I go, oh, I have it. I have the answer, and then it's gone. It just disappears. You're like, oh man, because that's such a high level that when you wake up, unless you have a practice, because everything takes practice, it takes method and repetition. We have to continually create a lifestyle in order to do this. When you bring that high dense or the high information back and come back into this dense reality, it does slip from us. And it slips from us almost like, God, that was the craziest dream, but I forgot it.
I know. I have to, I was like, okay, close your eyes. Just, I asked my higher self, can we pull that back, that whatever it's slipping away, can we please pull that back to the forefront? And I try not to focus on it so much, but just kind of replicate the feeling, get back into that feeling of whatever it was. And it's true. And I didn't think about it from the aspect of whatever information we're pulling it in, this place is more dense, so it slips away. It slips away from us so quickly. I never thought about it that way, but that makes so much sense. So when you're building timelines, okay, when you're working on your own timeline of what it is that you want for your future and what you're working towards and how to rise above whatever it is that you're navigating at the current time, what practices have you put into play so that you can help build that timeline in your astral?
Okay, so well, I guess for an example, I wanted to speak at a public event. I wanted to become a speaker at an event. And in order to do that, you actually have to become that person that's speaking at that event now. And in that time of becoming that person, what I do is I paint a picture in my mind of, well, what did that person do yesterday? And depending on what that person did yesterday, what did he do the day before? And then in my mind, I will trace it all the way back to the present moment. And then I will take that path in the present onward to meet that person, to become that vibrational match, to attain that dream.
So you basically reverse engineer your future event.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so important. And I think it's so important to understand who that person is, what they're embodying in that moment, because that is the key. Whatever it is, the embodiment, that will help you get into the feeling, and then you can start really navigating how you got there.
Yeah. And then accept the journey as well. A lot of times, sometimes people go oh, I didn't want it exactly that way. Well, that's us learning how to tune it, right? We can't be experts at the first time. If we manifest something and it's just shy of what we wanted, well, it's still working. What it's doing is it's giving us the responses for what we're desiring. We're attracting what we truly are looking forward to. But by the universe giving us something that's not quite what we asked for, that's giving us room for improvement. So a lot of times in the beginning, I would say for something, I'd manifest an opportunity, and all of a sudden, I actually don't want to do this. I'm denying my own power of what the universe moved to give to me. So instead of doing that, I just shifted my focus a little bit and goes, wow, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to build upon this. You're going to add it to that foundation, to build that cloud, to then have that vision, feel that person, to be that person, to continue forward. That is very important. It's so I also want to get involved in something called focused imagery. And it's kind of amazing, because if we were to look out of a pen, right? If we're to focus on a pen in our third eye, most people, not all of them, but most people, that pen would turn into a red pen, or it turn into a blue pen, or it turn into a pen with a little fluffy thing on it. So what that is doing is that's showing us that our attention can't necessarily be grounded into that object. So the more we can practice on that focused intention, add that elevated emotion, as much as you can see it here, it can be tangible within your hand. And that's a very important, not only occult practice, but spiritual practice when it comes to using the imaginative world. We really need to hone in on those skills and focus on that imagery, because the longer we can focus on it, the more we can feel how real it is. Mm-hmm. And then actually magnetize that possibility and create it as a manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I love that. And I think that's a really great exercise for people to just, anyone in the audience could do that tonight, pick any kind of object, like you said, a pen, an apple, whatever you want to do. Right. And, and just focus on it and really kind of get in like to the texture, to everything. Right. And use that as a way to strengthen your ability to focus on one image. Because like you said, that social media is training us to not focus on an image.
Well, it kills our distraction.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that was a great example of how you're building, like, going into that future moment and then reverse engineering it to help you understand how to build in your astral realm, and have you noticed, is there an example that you could give us of noticing when you're in the astral or like maybe when you wake up, that you realize, oh, wow, that was a total manipulation from the system that we're in the daily life that is manipulating me on the astral to create a timeline I don't want to be in?
Yes. Yes. So when I first began awakening, I was very interested into like the occult world, and I was starting to pursue that. I was getting invitations from certain members of certain societies, and I was dreaming one time that I was this high-level Freemason. I don't know if it was in the past, or I don't know if it was a past life, or however that worked, but I was shown, and it's almost kind of like Harry Potter. You've seen Harry Potter? He's like got the hat, and it's like, please not Slytherin, please not Slytherin. It says you can be great,
Yes.
Well, the universe doesn't necessarily care what you do as long as you play their game. It wants you to stay in a heart-centered, focus, which is very balanced. But in this dream, it showed me as some sort of like dark occultist, and that I was really successful. Like that was my path. And actually what I learned, by going through that, being aware of that, not identifying with that, what I learned is that was actually an attachment or a thought form that was trying to convince me to go down that path in this life, whether it be past karma or whether it be because of my curiosity. What you look at can also look back at you. So that awareness was a really good exercise for my own awareness of what's in my field manipulating my field. But in that dream world, it had me as like this wizard, basically. And I was like, this is so awesome. Like, I want to be a wizard, but I didn't want to be a wizard in a certain controlled structure. I wanted to be more like a Merlin, do whatever I want to do, live in a cave. But they kept showing me, and it was a repeating dream. It was just kept happening. But what I started noticing is that they weren't changing it up a bit. It wasn't a script. What they're trying to do was seed my subconscious mind with this pattern. And by having that pattern become part of my template. So it's like in the astral world, it was giving that repetition to make that something concrete within my own belief system, even though it wasn't. It was artificially seeded into there. And that can happen with dreams a lot, but I actually had influence with these people and I encountered these people. So that's where I think that came from. But shortly after, I completely dropped all that, dropped the communication and went a different route because it didn't feel right. We got to really pay attention to the feelings in the dreams, because we come out of these things going, wow, like that was terrifying. Why was it terrifying?
Yeah. So that's interesting, because I feel like that's one of the ways that we get tricked too, is through deception in the astral, based off of some of the experiences that we're having in waking life that are disturbances in our reality that were planted there. You know, and that can just be from excessive consumption of news in different formats, movies, TV, music, like whatever it might be, right? And substances, yeah. And I remember I had a couple of dreams about a specific person that I've been needing more insight about. And I remember having this one dream that felt very accurate. You know, I was like, okay, it felt like higher self stuff. And then I had another dream where I was like, this is not that person. I know this is not this person. Like, it was almost like someone hijacked the person to show me a very evil, deceptive, almost manipulative, and mean-spirited kind of personality, which I knew was not this person. I was like, wow, it's so interesting. And so when you have these experiences and you're so, well, here's the other thing too. This is why it's so important to do your healing. This is why it's so important to know your
play off that. Yeah.
Because when you know your truth and you start to heal all of your own shadow work, there are certain things that just cannot pass your discernment meter. You know, you're like, I know without a doubt that's not true, because you've cleared so much falsity from yourself, whether it's from your false beliefs, you know, your false narratives, whatever it might be. And so it was just interesting to me, because it's on the dream. The reason why we're talking about these dreams right now is because I just found the eclipse portal extremely vivid in dreams. And it was interesting to me to realize how we are deceived through manipulation if we're not aware. Like, it's almost like it's trying out different hats, you know, on what could work.
Yeah. So from what I understand, you know, we all have that cord that attaches our astral or energy body to that different dimension. One of the reasons why they kind of, you know, dip the hook in the water to see if we bite is because we are tethered to a physical generator of energy. Energy is electric motion, emotion, right? So if we're in that astral realm, our consciousness is still linked to the physical body. So if we're experiencing fear in the astral, we're actually generating energy that these beings around you will actually take from you. So there's that awareness of, you know, doing practices like poking your hands during the day, like, am I sleeping? Am I sleeping? And then doing it in your dreams. Am I sleeping? Your hand goes through your other hand. Well, now you know you're a dream. Now you know the emotions that they're trying to have you amplify. Well, you're in control at that point. There's a lot of times that I've had, you know, quite a few nightmares, but then again, a Harry Potter reference, you turn your fear into the biggest joke, because that's you changing the energy template. That's you manipulating the energy, but in a higher dimension. And that's a very powerful skill, because if you're able to do that in a dimension that makes no conscious sense to you, imagine what you could bring down in the physical dimension when it comes to energy transmutation. So a lot of these beings, they definitely will kind of seed into our own shadows, our own subconscious fears. For your example, with that person that was that seemed to be narcissistic, they're trying to poke at you to try to see if they can get you to generate that energy that they're seeking from you. That's why they're in this realm. They can't produce energy. They can manipulate it because it's fully in the conscious mental realm, but they can't actually generate the energy. So they'll show you these things. They'll show you this trickster. There's a reason why in communication, the ancient Greeks and Romans used Mercury. Mercury is the form of communication, but he's also the trickster. But he's also the closest to the sun. So you can call him the messenger of the gods. So when it comes to communication and that delivery of whatever's happening in that astral realm, it's a little difficult, but until you really start penetrating deeper into like, what hurts me? What am I afraid of? When those things start to manifest in that dream world, you have a little more ammunition on your side to kind of go, wait a second, like that discernment you were talking about. Wait a second. you didn't get me this time. I know that person. I'm completely done with that person. And then a lot of times, if it is a person like say an ex or something like that, and they appear in the physical reality, what that was a space away from time to get you ready to experience that person and see how you'll handle it. So sometimes it is manipulation, but sometimes it is like a foresight of, well, this person's coming. Are you ready? And how you respond in that dream world will really let you respond in the physical reality. But on the other side, by being aware of how you responded in that astral realm, you have more control of how you're going to respond in the physical. So then you can kind of retain that energy, because that entity is going to follow you no matter where you go.
So it was interesting what you said there with like the Harry Potter. Well, if you can just laugh at it, like that's what they say when you encounter a demon, is you're just supposed to laugh at it.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful energy transmutation, is taking a fear and turning it into a joke, like you said.
Yeah, if we look at the best comedians in the world, a lot of them had pretty harsh lives. And the best way for me, myself, is to heal through laughter. You see the brighter side of it, and you can change the whole. You're actually, by telling the joke of something that was pretty traumatic, not only are you giving a lesson, showing people a different side of you, but showing that you got out of it okay, which can inspire other people. And it's joy is a very, very powerful thing, and it's something that can be generated very quickly.
Yeah, I think so. And so that's really interesting. Now, when it comes to here's another thing that maybe we can talk about before moving on to a couple other things, is this idea of why it's so important to clear ourselves, not just for our waking reality, but also for the astral realm, because the astral realm is pretty ghetto in some places, you know.
Yep.
And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so important, is to keep our field, our consciousness as clear as possible, and being aware of where we're giving our energy during the day, because ultimately that kind of sets the tone, like you said, for the thing. And so to me, I think this is one of the reasons why we need to also be aware of any particular attachments we may have. And I don't just mean negative entity attachments. I mean just even attachments to negative belief systems, or whatever they might be, that will penetrate into what I feel is a much more powerful co-creative space than the waking reality in many ways, because we don't hold the same limiting factors. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm actually getting ready to present about this. And essentially what I do is I describe how the chakras, or the top down, can produce physical matter or physical reality. And the best way I could describe it as an artist. So if I'm an artist and I have this vision and I see it, now, even though there's so much more intricacies and all that kind of stuff involved with that, I can draw it in a very simple fashion, but people can still feel the impact by looking at it. So when it comes to like, your mental sphere, your imagination sphere, a lot of times surrounding us within our auric field, we do have parasitic attachments that will definitely influence your thought through thought behavior, thought forms. And then also, that past trauma is why they're there as a passenger. So as we clear, those type of things and be aware of our field, we have more of a clear-headedness. It's kind of like more of a, that fog or that mist goes away. And so essentially when we're trying to really focus on, clearing that astral space because of all that negativity that's associated with it, we have to remember that we are the light within that space. And by, shining through that light, you just have fun with it. That's the point. You just have fun with it. And you got to remember, it's the subconscious mind. It's not physical. So when you kind of take that perspective, more of like a childlike perspective, that it's just all fun and games, you are in total control then. And you have total ability to switch the mode. Like, oh, I don't want to be in this haunted house. You're at the beach. You can do it really quickly. It's just by getting that awareness and understanding that, this reality is filled with all these beings, but it's there as a tool to exercise how we're kind of navigating. I don't think I necessarily answered your question, but that's kind of what came through for that sec.
Oh yeah, no, it works. So that's great. That's a great answer. Because you know, it's like what we're seeing, what I'm realizing is that we're distracted with so many different things. And like you said, understanding that we are the light and we have that opportunity to shift our reality any given time. I think sometimes it's almost a little less daunting to shift it in the astral realm, because there's a part of us that almost doesn't believe that it's really real, right? We still have that programming. And so for us to kind of try out some of our powers in the astral realm can help us get more comfortable with them here in the waking life. You know, like for instance, I have flying dreams all the time, and I love them, and it's just like, and I instantly I had one last week where I was falling out of the sky, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to fly now, you know, and I'm like, okay, you know what to do, and I'm like, okay, it's not working, and it's just like this kind of thing where it's I don't know if you've had the similar feeling when you're in a flying dream, but it's almost like I have to really pull in my energy and thrust it. Like it's almost like with my mind, I'm thrusting myself into this like almost like a rocket, you know, and then I'm going, and it's like you're not floating, but you're coasting.
Yeah. So there's a lot. I've actually had that a lot too. What happens in my understanding, because I have a lot of flying dreams, love flying, but what flying represents to me is freedom.
Yeah.
So when we're flying, all of a sudden we start falling. We forget how to fly. We forget how to be free. And then we go, oh my gosh, we're freaking out. We're falling. And then we think of like a rocket to get us back there. That's an earthly construct. What they want us to do is to not focus on the earthly constructs. You know, in murals and ancient art, they always have these deities with these wings, because that's how they can conceptualize how they fly. But we aren't necessarily flying with, you know, any mechanism. We are lift. We are freedom. We are just this light substance. And a lot of times when I've noticed when I've been falling is because I'm trying to seep my consciousness so much into this reality. And then those two they don't collide. They're not necessarily separate, but they're not the same.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like when we have a dream and we're in an argument with someone and we want to punch them, but you can't. You ever notice that? You cannot harm another person.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, that works for the third dimension. The fourth dimension is a little bit different. We have to think outside of the box, because at that point, our consciousness is unlimited. You're unleashed. You're out of the physical body. So that's when we can really find our individuality when it comes to our dreams and pull those things through and truly express freedom to fly. And a lot of times also when I was flying and I start falling, it's because fear sank in. I can't do this. I can't actually fly. But a lot of times it's easier, but we try to think about it too much. We get into the analytical mind and we're not in that emotional embodiment of all that is, and then continue to fly. But those are also very fun. Those are running really, really fast. Those ones are awesome.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever had a really running fast one before.
I used to be really into Sonic the Hedgehog as a kid.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, it was interesting when I was falling from the sky. There was the part of me, I knew I was in a dream. Like I was like, oh, here we go. Like this is where you turn it on, and like don't stress out, because you're not gonna die. Like this is not what your whatever earthly self thinks is happening right now. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting how you're just getting closer and closer. But I'm like, just don't stress out. Just don't stress out. Like you got this. Yeah.
I had an interesting dream once. It was a couple years back. And essentially, I was with what I would call my higher self. And I had wings at the time, and I was trying to fly. And I can only fly up and down. And he was just watching me, kind of smiling, kind of, like how that fatherly figure would. It's like, let you figure it out till you fall. Well, I didn't figure it out. And I can only go up and down. And I asked him, I was like, why can I only move up and down? And he said, because you're not using your full potential of your mind. And I said, well, what does that mean? And the image comes up of a masculine and feminine mind, masculine and feminine polarities within each one of us. And what I didn't realize is that in my waking life, I was masculine mind dominated, logic, direction, mathematics. But in this dream world, I tried to carry that with me, and it doesn't work in this realm. And I said, well, how can I move left and right? And he says, you have to use the creative feminine expressive energy. I was like, well, what does that mean? It says the other half of your mind, because when you use both in unison, you embody the principles that escapes duality because you are that one. And so I was like, holy crap. And that's actually what, that's a long story for another time. But that moment coming back down, I still remember that dream because that actually is what activated my awakening by using both sides of my mind, not only in the dream space, but also here, gaining that empathy, gaining that awareness of I have to heal myself versus constantly do. And it really gave that dynamic of, in this astral realm, the world doesn't work the way we think it does. We can't sit there and go, well, I am here in Chicago, but I want to be in Washington. That's a right side mentality. But when realistically is if you were to incorporate the left side, the creative experience, you already are in both places. So that's how you can, get rid of that third dimensional construct of physical space between things. And that's a really fun one to play with when you think about just emotions or actually interactions with other people. Is, am I too dominant on my masculine polarity? Because each person has it. Or am I too dominant on my feminine? And the goal is to kind of be in the middle, that middle path. Because that's where you get the whole picture. That's when duality is working for you, not against you. And then another thing, everything in this reality is dualistic. And that's why we're so polarized within not only our own belief system, but society as a whole. So if we're already polarized, how can we be unified within our own consciousness alone? It's a little more difficult to kind of stay left side or right side, whether it be politics, belief systems, or anything. But the goal is to kind of absorb all that information, but use it as one working system and not stuck either way.
Yeah. Just to find that peace, that place of peace in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think that there are, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that there are actual people, like some of us, and maybe even other entities who are specifically here to help build timelines, but doing them in the astral plane?
So from what I understand, I think a lot of the work is done on the physical plane. Mm-hmm. And let me explain this real quick. So the physical plane is I can pick something up and put it down. Right? That's just a very vague example. But in the astral world, what that represents is so much more because the information and the energy associated with actually coming through the receiver of a conscious mind to do that action has a lot more effect in this or in the other dimensions than it does this one. So if we are ourselves breaking generational curses or generational tendencies, as I like to call them, but we're doing it in the waking physical moment, that effect in the astral realm is like tenfold. You're doing so much more work there. That's why we come incarnate here. We have all these, baggages and all these issues and karmic stuff because the work we do here, it has an incredible amount of progress in the astral world. And that's how people can literally do their shadow work. And almost overnight, they have different abilities.
I agree. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I completely agree with you. My question is more of do you think that there are specific, how we have, we have a specific matrix system and there's certain people that are designed to continuously infiltrate your mind with certain things to help create a timeline that they want. Do you think that there are also people that are here that have special skills on the astral plane that are being used to do the opposite thing, to help build a positive timeline? But I guess they could be doing a negative one as well, but positive ones to assist us in what we're doing here on the physical.
Yeah, actually I do. So we're familiar with the microcosm and the macrocosm, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever happens at a small level, say with myself, if I heal sexual trauma within myself, and this is just my own observations, the more of that I heal, it actually can heal and give opportunity for the rest of the collective. So in a way, I myself or other people do influence timelines. And it's actually a collective movement. I do believe there are certain figures that have more of an impact, if that makes sense. But there's also ones that can be the ones that are anchoring down the energy in order for other people to do that manifestation or timeline shifting. There's absolutely that possibility. But we each have our part in it, and they're not all the same. They're all going to be a little bit different. Someone's purpose could be simply just absorbing other people's energy and transmuting it. but their perspective could be like, man, everybody hates me. But because they keep going and they keep transmuting it and keep smiling to the stranger on the street, they're doing their job. They're doing their mission without even knowing. So every time we take that chance to do something that we know we should do, we're changing the timelines anyway. Now, depending upon what you're connected to and how your oversoul construct kind of works, you may have more of an energy impact on the collective as a whole, because it does work with, on the dark side as well. But the difference between the dark side is they actually don't have any power. They have to use our power through our consent and manipulation of them saying something, but double speaking and then taking for themselves. They can't actually create the way we do because we're in harmony with the universe. They're using the same laws, same principles. It's a little bit more of like a science culty-ish vibe to it, but they have to use us as the generation force to manipulate those timelines. That's why a lot of times you'll see like cartoons that will come out with all the towers falling, and then all of a sudden the towers do fall. They're setting you up for the stage to create that event. And by harnessing the energy of everyone that's watching that event, because you're paying attention, they're able to make the next one.
Yeah.
Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, like hence why so many movies are playing themselves out right now.
Yeah. And the number one movies made in Hollywood are horror movies.
Yeah.
The reason why, they're not for the movies. They're actually for the trailers. Because the trailers within that 2 minutes are going to hit someone's subconscious fears so hard that they're harnessing the energy from that 2 minutes. Because the actual movie is in the commercial. The rest of it's just whatever they want to put in it because it's terrible.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So let's get into, you were mentioning earlier, like the law of mentalism. Yeah. Let's get into that a little bit because before we went live, you were talking about how that there's been, what did you say, 60,000 years?
Yeah. So there's certain sects of these occult, I guess you could say societies, whether they're Knights of Templar, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Golden Order of the Dawn. There's so many of them, the different ones, but they're all kind of linked together. You can be a member of each one, which is pretty interesting. But there's recorded history for about, at least that I've seen, about 40,000 years of recorded history, which is longer than supposedly the pyramids and supposedly all these other ancient artifacts and things with here on that planet. So what that tells me that these people have been doing it for quite a while, but they also have it down to such a way that they're able to influence the masses and have most people believe it, buy into it, buy into an artificial conscious construct that is completely opposite of our nature. It's in our school, it's in our food, it's in all these kind of things. So, and they start off with these laws, kind of similar to the commandments, but those are still altered. But these are laws of the universe in an occult understanding. And the first law is the law of mentalism. And what that states is it's a Hermetic philosophy passed down by a person named Hermes Trismegistus, or also known as, I think, Mercury. The Trice Grace, the great is what it means. And essentially it means that all is the mind. The universe is mental. And if you were to think of in a religious aspect, I mean, God said that there'll be light, and there was, because it was a thought. Then also back in that time frame, they didn't necessarily speak. They used symbolism and they were telepathic. So the impact of our own words are already manipulated. If you look at our own language, like how often do we use words that we don't know what they are? Like the word nice. Everyone's like, oh, you're so nice. It actually means ignorant of not knowing in the Latin word where that came from. So we take the law of mentalism as, the first point of consciousness, which is unity. It's inclusive. It's all, it's everything. Because if we were to have a thought of like my second birthday, right? I'm there instantly. Not there physically, but I'm there instantly because everything functions around the mind. That's why the one thing being hacked right now is consciousness. The second one would be the law of correspondence. So that's the as above, so below. Whatever is reflected in the heavens is manifested down in the earth plane. But what they're trying to do is kind of flip it around, but not in a good sense. And so when we understand the law of correspondence, you can kind of understand these other ones. We have like polarity. We're all very familiar with polarity, which is, you think of masculine and feminine as a polarity, even though that's gender, but it is an opposite. You can think of hot and cold as a polarity. There's no such thing as necessarily cold. There's just less heat, but it's still on that same sliding scale. And it's polarity. It's only different by degree. The next one would be vibration. Vibration is a very interesting one because you can kind of get a sense where you're at on your journey based off the people you hang around, the people you are around, or the people you were around. By understanding that, you can kind of feel like, okay, am I in a good spot? Or am I with some people that I need to probably let loose? They may have been friends for a long time. I had to do this myself. There's some people that you're just not a match with. You can't communicate like how you used to. You can't, you're not into the same things. They just don't vibe with you. That's where that word comes from. The other one we have, I'm just looking at my list here so I don't mess up the names, with the law of rhythm. So law of rhythm is really cool. Basically, everything has an ebb and a flow. Everything has its tides. Everything comes to an end or an apex, right? So as far as the pendulum swings to the right is the exact measure of the pendulum to the left. What essentially that means is if I'm going through my daily routine and I'm doing good acts or if I'm giving service, that pendulum, even though it may seem that things might not be going my way, it will swing your way eventually. It's rhythm. It has to. There's always a tide in the morning and there's an opposite tide at night. It's just how the world kind of fluctuates its balance. And it's kind of how we're able to, experience these things within the universe that can give us a higher and deeper perspective. The next one would be causation. This is the one that the occultists do the most work on. And the reason why is because for every cause, there's an effect. But in order to manipulate the masses, they already know the effect because they are the cause. So if we want to confuse children and with their gender, well, I already know the effect. You're going to either demasculinize men or over-feminize women because we've created a cause and created a social norm because they're the trendsetters or the, social constructors, or however you want to put it. So it just basically, chance is merely indicating cause without understanding the effect is essentially what that means. And they use that so very often in everything, movies, Hollywood, our own history. They know the effects because they create the cause. The next one would be gender. And now we're not specifically talking about like, I'm a man, you're a woman gender, but it does fall into that. It can be anything from like, a USB drive has a male end and there's also a female end. In electricity, you have the negative charge and the positive charge. Negative is the pulling, the positive is the pushing. You have the yin and yang here. But with gender, it also talks about the mind. And whether I may be a male, but I also have a feminine and masculine polarity within my mental sphere. And unfortunately, the way society works and the way school works, the left side is completely shut down. There's cultures within this planet that don't allow you to write with your left hand. They don't allow you to do anything with your left hand. In certain Middle Eastern countries, it's very insulting to raise your left hand. So they completely shut down the physical side of that section of your body because they don't want you to develop the left side of your mind. And I tried to ask everyone in the audience to do this test. Whatever hand is your not dominant hand, try to write with it. That will show you in a very kind of crude sense, the level of education that side of your body has. And for myself, if I write with my left hand, it's almost like when it comes to like, hand-eye coordination, it's at the level of kindergarten. It's so underdeveloped, but that portion of the brain is where creativity comes from. It's where expansion, freedom, it's where all this, it's the divine side. It's the side that pulls in the information from the universe and the conscious masculine mind puts it to action. Now, it's different than gender, though, because it doesn't mean that the woman is solely this and the man is solely that. It's having both the receptive and the doing in one being to actually implement a difference and change in the world. And that's a very big one that they hack, quite a bit. I have a thing that I wrote down. It says, I will create my reality as a desire. It's the masculine principle to move. The universe conspires with me for my every desire. That's the feminine principle of reception. It's drawing that energy. And that's within the mental realm. And we can understand how they're kind of manipulating these things because they have an understanding that they've been in practice for about 40,000 years to then create what we see today, a complete destruction of the human experience. And it's done through these ancient understandings. And this is just one of many, but this is just one that hit me from a book called the Kabbalion, and it talks about these Hermetic philosophies. It's kind of a difficult read, but it's the way they explain it can, if you're open to it, allows the universe to teach you each one of these things in your waking life almost as soon as you read it, because you're at a little higher understanding after these, axioms or these teachings that through synchronicity, the universe will teach you. And that's the best teacher, is the universe. Can I go through my day and have random occurrences literally teach me about my life? And that's how I've decided to go forth with my life, is to have the universe teach me. And I have the craziest experiences, whether it's small or big, but I recognize them. But the other thing is that I've noticed that if you get like super excited about like, oh, that's a synchronicity that I was looking for, that has the ability to kind of affect the next one. So what I do is I recognize it and I say, oh, that's interesting. You want to say at that really neutral point, like, oh, that's so interesting. But you take note of it, but then you're excited. You have that childlike joy to see the next one, and they'll start happening more and more and more. And it's a lot of fun.
I agree with you. I love using the word, oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because it's not putting, like you said, a positive or a negative thing on it. It's a curiosity, like you said, of expecting more, wanting to know more. And I think it's really good. One of the other words that I use with one of my clients, we got her using to describe things as magical.
Yeah, that works.
As opposed to something weird happened. And I'm like, let's not use the word weird anymore.
Yeah, the word weird is denying your own power.
Yeah.
But when I say, oh, I did that, well, that's also into egotism. So what I do is I go, oh, that's interesting, fascinating. Like, please provide more. Let me learn, the intricacies of how does this work? And then seeing that picture of however this came to aspire is sometimes like, that's incredible. And then you understand that there are no such thing as coincidences.
No, yeah, exactly. And I like, and the reason why I like the word magical is because it brings in the mystery, right? Mm-hmm. It brings in a love for the mystery of the unknown. And so it's like, oh, well, show me more that I don't know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's really wonderful. Well, this has been so wonderful having you on.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It just flies by the hour.
There's only a few people that we get to talk to like this on a daily, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, yeah, it's always so much fun having you on. So you've got some events coming up. Do you want to let everyone know what's kind of going on for you?
Yeah, so in August, I will be with Trisha from 90 Degree Turns. We'll be, Trisha is actually hosting Ascension Summit 21. Co-hosting, sorry. There's another a host along with that, but then we're also going to be presenting. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit more deeper about, I'm going to break down the dimensions as best as I can because it's kind of hard, but I'm going to tie how the dimensions work in the plane of manifestation, but then also within those 7 Hermetic laws and how we're able to use them as a tool within our own belt against people that use it against us. There's some things that I've come to understand that they make things look difficult because the truth isn't all that hard to find. Like if you think about math, how many times can you do one project to solve it and it comes out the same way, but they don't teach you it until you learn the hard way first. So I'm just trying here to decode some of these occult philosophies in a way that can be understood. And I think our presentation will be quite amazing. And then also we're doing a little bit more episodes on 90 Degree Turns. We have a pretty good lineup. We've been quite busy with, production, all that kind of stuff that kind of takes some time, but we're very excited for the summer. We have a lot of events going on.
Awesome. And are you going to be at ECETI?
I will be at ECETI. Yes. I'm not speaking. I'll be a guest.
Okay. Awesome.
But I will definitely be there and see all of you who come there. I'm very excited for that one too.
Oh, great. Because you were there. You were there last summer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there. Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I overcame my fear going like, well, I'm ready to meet other conscious individuals. And
that's
it was
right.
probably the best experience I ever had.
That's amazing. Oh, so good. I'm so glad that happened. And I'm so glad that you had to go back. And of course, it's great to have you back on the show. So everyone, if you need to reach out to Mason, I've left his details in the show notes. And thank you to Wise Mama Bear and Mark UFO for dropping all of the links in the live chat, guys. It's been great to see you there. And guys, I love you so much. Thanks for being on the show. Next week, I'll have Peter Maxwell Slattery on, and we'll get into some fun stuff there. So Mason, thanks for being on the show. And guys, we'll be back with you